What's up, everybody? Brett here, back today with some more Total War Warhammer news. We're going to be reading it straight off the website here. It's just some lore, some history, and some small breadcrumbs of information that I thought you guys might find interesting. If you don't have time to go and look online, find this stuff yourself, I've done it for you. I'm going to read it to you, and we'll talk about it. We'll get a little nerdy. And we're also going to go on the Reddit for a little bit, because there's some additional information, some other stuff I've seen while scrolling today. And I want to talk about that too, and maybe just go ahead and look at Reddit for some general info and good times. So this is not a super serious video. We're just going to talk, have fun, and here we go. Alright guys, so in case you haven't heard, Grand Cathay is coming to Total War Warhammer 3, no duh, and the thrilling conclusion of the Warhammer trilogy, well, not counting the years of live support we'll be offering, please. Grand Cathay joins the 4 Chaos Gods and the Kislevite peoples as one of our factions that will fight for the future of the world. And, you know, kind of a big hidden elephant in the room sized asterisk. I should have said ogre sized asterisk, because it's the ogres. The ogres are probably going to be the pre-order faction that we should expect. But who exactly are they? Oft mentioned throughout the annals of Warhammer history, they never quite made it to the foreground until now. And I'm so happy that they are. Grand Cathay is a massive and incredibly powerful empire situated in the east of the Warhammer world, beyond the Darklands, across the mountains of Moor, and past the Great Moth. So, real quick, Darklands, that's where the bad dwarves live with their slaves and their magic. Almost called them an Umgak. I think that's what dwarves call like idiots. And then the Mountains of Morn are kind of like, I think they're sort of like Warhammer's equivalent of something like the Himalayas, right? The giants used to live there back when they were the Sky Titans and they had brains. And then the Great Moth showed up, which was, there's some history behind that too. Not to get into too much history, but just to give you a little bit of background. It's thought that in order to get rid of the ogres, celestial wizards, I believe, from Cathay called down like a meteor to strike them. And by doing so, they kind of inadvertently created this, well, on purpose, they created this big hole. They killed a bunch of the ogres. They sent the ogres into like an exodus. The ogres went into the Mountains of Morn, ate all the Sky Titans, and then started worshipping the hole in the ground, which became the Great Maw. In Warhammer, if you worship something, it becomes real. And now it's like their deity, or one of their many deities. I think they also worship a volcano as well, which also makes sense, considering how much they love to eat. But, yeah, just a little bit of history, guys. If I get anything wrong, if my lore is a little incorrect, feel free to correct me in the comments, but I think I got the gist of it. So the gaping moon in the land caused by Grand Cathay's astromancers. There we go. Millennia ago, I said celestial wizards. Sounds pretty much the same to me as an astromancer. It covers a landmass larger than the Empire, Bretonia, and many other nations combined. Vast cities pockmark the landscape with huge populations watched over by the ruling dragons, the celestial dragon emperor, his consort, the moon empress, and their children. Very cool. So, to the north lies the Great Bastion, the Great Wall of China, constructed thousands of years past by the Dragon Emperor himself and imbued with much of his magic. A humongous wall that has stood for aeons against the ever-present threat of chaos. In times gone by and for millennia, chaos has been the most serious threat to Grand Cathay. Had the Emperor and Moon Empress wished it, sheer force of numbers and powerful magics and artillery could have dominated much of the land to the west, but they have been content to rule and defend their already formidable nation. That's quite the claim, that they could basically just march out and conquer the world, should they so choose. I was listening, I haven't read this yet myself, but I was listening to a bit of Italian Spartacus talking about it. And I thought his take on the fact that the Dragon Emperors are still alive, the Dragon Emperor and the Empress are still alive, was pretty interesting. He made a quick point about how the Emperor and Empress would basically be worshipped as gods, were they dead. You know, when you consider the lands of the dwarves, the Empire, and several other of the factions, most of their gods, you know, quote unquote, are dead. The dwarves have their ancestor gods who occasionally kind of show up in one way or another to save them. You know, basically almost like prayers coming true. Sigmar is the same deal. Yeah, it's just kind of the way the Warhammer world works, right? Myth becomes legend, legend becomes religion, and then, you know, you can pray and you can shoot like lightning bolts out of your hands. That's kind of the way it works. But their gods in Cathay are the Dragon Emperors, and they're still alive. I I mean, imagine if it's like that song. What if God was one of us? He's just chilling. The Dragon Emperor's just somewhere chilling, making dragon babies. Why they're so powerful and why they can't, beat back chaos is kind of a mystery. I'm wondering if they'll ever get into that. If they're so strong and so ancient, they're from before the old ones, from a time before when chaos even was there. They basically had free reign of the earth should they so choose. And they're like, nah, we're content just to rule this one, albeit incredibly massive piece of land. But yeah, if they could go out and conquer all the nations of men and they just don't, that's kind of interesting, considering they are essentially, living gods. So harmony is the driving force behind Cathayan society, and here we get a pretty cool screenshot as well. We took an in-depth look at that in the last video. I'm not going to go over that too much. The teachings of the Dragon Emperor are such that everyone must work in concert with themselves, and the land for the betterment of all and to find their natural place. This drives everything, for their magic lores of yin and yang to how the dragons govern their people. Far from tyrants or aloof aristocrats, the dragons act as teachers and wardens for the populace. They see little point in creating an imbalance between mortals and themselves, when the ever-present threat of chaos will happily destroy them all. Yeah. If only we had modern-day rulers who were, more focused like that. That'd be pretty sweet. I don't know how many teachers and wardens we currently have of our populaces, but around the world, there's a couple aristocrats and there's also a couple tyrants, unfortunately. So similarly, the dragons are not treated as gods, nor do they demand worship. They are immensely powerful beings, rulers by magical and physical probably right rather than mysterious divinity. The iconography of the dragons is commonplace and ever-present throughout society, but because they are very real, very present, and very powerful rulers. Yeah, and that's kind of the point that I was just trying to make, well summed up, is... Yeah, it's interesting. I guess they just straight up just don't consider them the gods. They're just like, look, we have these awesome dragon leaders, and they've never screwed us over yet, so let's just keep letting them run the show. Yeah, they are treated by the people with reverence as such beings deserve, and speaking ill of them, especially if you are not native to Grand Cathay, is a quick way to get yourself killed. Hilarious. The dragons often move among the people in human form. While still evidently far beyond a commoner, they only transform to their draconic selves when there is need, embracing their heritage to lay waste to a battlefield and fly far above their forces. In war, the harmony of the Cathayan way of life is ever present, their forces acting in concert to lay waste to enemies with devastating precision and calm. I'm wondering, do the dragons of the rest of the Warhammer world often, or can they even go into human form? I don't know. I'm trying to think of another instance when that happens, but the high elves, all the elves really, but and a lot of other races as well, but have interactions with dragons. The high elves, I think, come to mind more specifically because they often ride them in the battle and they have relationships with them as like equals. And I don't know if they ever go into human form. I don't know if that's an ability unique to the Eastern dragons. But in Warhammer 3, our focus is on two main areas: Northern Cathay with the Storm Dragon Miao Ying, and the Great Bastion in Western Cathay with the Iron Dragon Zhao Ming and the Ivory Road. Think the Silk Road is what it's analogous to in true history. The land of the Storm Dragon includes the fortress city of Nangao, never conquered or sacked, despite the many wars that have met its borders. Naturally, the Great Bastion dominates much of the landscape, with its massive gates and huge patrols of troops fending off attacks from chaos. The eastern steppes make up the lands beyond, thoroughly infested with chaos of every stripe. I'm expecting to see chaos as a major enemy for Cathay. I'm expecting to see probably Skaven as well. Little less talked about at the moment are the ogres, who are going to be on their doorstep, no doubt. The Darklands are going to be filled with the Chaos Dwarves as well. And of course Chaos, I think that's a given. Beastmen will probably be present, I would have to assume. There's going to be a lot of negative, quote-unquote evil forces for you to fight as Cathay, I have to imagine. Not to mention probably rivalries amongst other Cathayan factions. There is something of the Monkey King, which I think maybe gets referenced later, which we'll talk about, who may also be kind of that negative force in Cathay. And I was watching a Milk and Cookies Total War video, I think last night, and he was talking about, he was drawing parallels between actual Chinese mythology and some of the stuff that they're doing here. And one of the points he made was that the dragons, the two that we've seen already, correlate to other dragons. And I'm going to butcher this because I'm not an expert in Chinese mythology. But apparently there's a dragon of the north, south, east, and west. Each one of them is representative of some type of element. And we're already seeing the one from the north and the one from the west. So the ones that we haven't seen yet may perhaps be the east and south, and they may also be dragon children of the emperor. So we might end up getting eventually four dragon children, which would be cool. Milk and Cookies, I think, was a little down on that idea. I don't hate it as much. Or we might get something like the Monkey King or other such things. So let me continue reading here. We get a cool picture of, that is going to be, what's his name? Zhao Ming. That's going to be Zhao Ming that we're looking at, the white dragon. Mao Ying is arguably the most powerful dragon alive, save her mother and father. Immense power and immense responsibility land on her shoulders, and she can seem cold and aloof in comparison to her siblings. The defense of the realm, the future of Grand Cathay, and much more is quite the burden to bear. Meanwhile, the Iron Dragon must make do with a less defended, if less chaotic, and chaotic with a capital C, area of the world. The western provinces contain beasts and men of all sorts coming from further west, as well as the regular incursions of Skaven and ogres from the Warpstone Desert and Mountains of Morn. So exactly what I was just talking about. The creation of the Great Maw still hangs heavy on this area, even as an uneasy peace maintains. Zhao Ming is a natural-born warrior, though less innately skilled than his sister to the north. He is a talented alchemist and shows great preference for the art among his armies, much to the chagrin of those that find the insidious magics worrying for the Empire. So he's a more magic-focused character. Interesting. His lifelong station so close to the Great Maw and all that warpstone mean many fear his mind is permanently damaged from the exposure, and any eccentricities or erratic behavior he displays is very worrying to his siblings. That's fast. That's a fascinating take. He might be like the mad brother. He's basically been sipping that mercury. Might end up talking like Luther Harkin. Interesting. I wonder how that'll affect his play. And clearly, they're hinting towards him being maybe more of a caster focus, while maybe Mao Ying is something of a different type of caster or a more melee focused character. We'll have to wait and see. Of course, stability and prosperity have not reigned forever and are unlikely to continue without a fight. The history of Grand Cathay is longer than even chaos, originating more than 5,000 years previous, when the Celestial Dragon Emperor ruled the land before the coming of the Old Ones. He learned how to take the form of a human to gather the tribes, and when chaos began to sweep the world, he defended his burgeoning empire, eventually constructing the Great Bastion to keep the hordes at bay. So, I mean, that might answer my question there. Maybe it's a trait kind of unique to him and to his children that they can take human form. And that also gives you a bit of history. Before the Old Ones, basically the aliens who were looking to hide out and make super chaos fighting genetic soldiers, as far as I understand it, they showed up, started terraforming, started moving the planet, started doing all kind of crazy stuff, and the Dragon Emperor was already there, chilling. And when they messed up and had their gates destroyed and crashed down onto the planet, and all that warpstone, all that radiation, all that that chaos, all the warp started to open up, basically, if you like 40K. And yeah, demons started to pour through, and they were like, what the hell? And they had to make a great wall. So very cool. I love how they tie fantasy into real stuff. That's got to be the thing that always catches me with fantasy from Warhammer. It has been attacked on innumerable occasions, innumerable, let me say that correctly, damaged and even sometimes breached, but still the Great Bastion stands as powerful a vanguard against chaos as ever, constantly maintained and garrisoned by massive armies. Only Tzeentch, known to Grand Cathay as Chan Chi, has managed to significantly infiltrate the Empire, his cults being a common cause of disruption and rebellion within. If you guys have never seen anything about the Great Wall, I would encourage looking it up. It's such a cool... there's some bad history behind it, but think of it in terms of like the utility, how they designed it, all the different like towers along the sections, how they were designed in case of siege, how the crenellations were laid kind of catty corner to each other, so that retreating archers and units could fire and defend while retreating back to the towers. It's all quite fascinating and well thought out. I don't know how detailed The Great Wall is throughout its entire length, but I know certain segments of it were very well manned once upon a time, and it would have been something to see any force try and siege the Great Wall. That would have been fascinating. And because we'll never get to see that, Warhammer might be the closest thing for us. So I can't wait to see hordes of Tzeentchi's demons trying to take down the wall as we do some of the unique siege battles that I think Maoling is going to be privy to. So trade is the main reason the Western factions know of Grand Cathay's existence and its primary interaction with them. Speaking of that real quick, watch Marco Polo if you haven't on Netflix. It's one of my favorite shows. For outsiders, it is a realm of infinite riches and pleasures unknown, seemingly immune from the endless terrors that prowl the outside world. While this is far from the truth, the absolute economic power of the Ivory Road cannot be disputed, and those that make their living along it are evidence of that. For Grand Cathay, there is plenty to gain from an outside world with technology, trinkets, and beasts that are all foreign to them. The most tumultuous time in Grand Cathay's history came when a combination of invasions of chaos from the north and the Monkey King from the south. So the Monkey King may very well replace whatever one of the 4 dragon siblings might have been, and instead be some sort of kind of rebellious element in the south, some sort of additional starting character who can then turn and conquer the entire empire. I would look for the Monkey King to be coming in a DLC very soon after the release. Alongside a 4-century disappearance of the Dragon Emperor and the Moon Empress, nearly led the empire to ruin. Why did it disappear? I might have to look that up. Then, more than any other time, the natural competition between the Emperor's children reached its peak, and Grand Cathay was essentially divided into warring states. This allowed the Monkey King to take power and claim dominion over the empire, and act heinous enough to galvanize the warring siblings into once again putting aside their differences to fight for their father's throne. At the key moment, the Emperor and Empress returned and helped to defeat the Monkey King, who fled south. Little is known of him or his fate. Perhaps yet darker days may be on the horizon. Events the world over are conspiring to require the attention of even these isolationists. Chaos amasses beyond the Great Bastion like never before. Rebellion and squabbles between local factions are reaching new heights within the Empire. Whatever machinations the Celestial Dragon Emperor has been planning continue to come to fruition. But to what end? Only he knows. What are you going to do about it? This reminded me of a story I read when I was much younger, and I used to read a lot of theology and a lot of philosophy and stuff like that. But I remember reading a story about the Buddha and about the Monkey King. And if you guys know this story and I mess it up, apologies. But just this is the bare bones what I remember. It's the story of a monkey who he's basically Master Splinter. He is raised by a wizard who teaches him magic. And the monkey grows so powerful, he kind of outstrips his master, and he starts causing mischief in the world. He's a super powerful monkey. And he's taking over the world. He's got his monkey army. And I think this is essentially the story of the Monkey King, but maybe a different variant of it or a different story because it ties to the Buddha. So one day the Monkey King comes across the Buddha, and he is bragging to the Buddha about how powerful he is, how strong he is. And he says to the Buddha, I'm the most powerful. And the Buddha says, oh, okay. And he says, well, show me. And the Monkey King, as I'll call him, because I think that's what the story is, he jumps. He says, watch how far I can jump. And he jumps really, really far. He jumps like across over a mountain. And the Buddha says, wow, that's very impressive. But is that really like as far as you could jump? And the monkey's like, oh no, I can jump further than that. So he jumps again, he jumps further. And this time he jumps over a massive canyon. And the Buddha says, oh, that was very impressive. But if you're so powerful, couldn't you jump further than that? And the monkey says, oh, well, of course I can. And he jumps even further. This time he jumps over a huge desert. And the Buddha says, I'm very impressed. And the Monkey King says, okay, do you get it now? Do you get how powerful I am? And the Buddha kind of just gently smiles and laughs and says, when you first jumped over the mountain, you were jumping over the tip of my finger. When you jumped over the canyon, you jumped over the crease, one of the creases in my hand. And then when you jumped over the desert, you were jumping over my palm. He's like, don't you understand? It's just like, holy shit. It blew my mind when I was a kid reading this story. I definitely messed it up a little bit, but that's the general idea. The Monkey King's arrogance and the Buddha kind of setting him in his place. Sorry if that story sucked. But that's the bare bones of what I remember from something I read when I was probably 12 years old. But anyway, guys, Monkey King, hopefully that will be something that's in the game at some point, if not very soon. I don't know. It could even be something weird on launch. I don't know. But here we go. Let's go to the Reddit and read this real quick. I saw this was posted, and maybe this is something, maybe this is nothing, but it doesn't hurt us to read it. So, Terracotta Sentinels. The Terracotta Sentinels are creations born of the dragon's mastery of the elemental winds, each one a towering animated statue fashioned in the form of a great warrior. Often they are found carved into the sides of the great bastion itself, their helmets and spears making up its battlements, their bodies its buttresses. They can also, however, be found throughout the Empire, often standing watch over fields, bridges, and cities, unmoving until they are animated for war. Legend has it that these sentinels are the gigantic soldiers of an army built by the Dragon Emperor thousands of years ago, when chaos threatened to overwhelm the Empire. Since then, they have been left scattered across Cathay, waiting to be called to war once more. So, yeah, I mean, my thought, and the reason why I pulled this up, because I didn't read it, I wanted to wait and read it on camera for you guys, was that, and I was having the exact same thoughts as these people, which are that they might have smaller terracotta units. I'm gonna click on this, but hopefully this is not something terrible. Or is this what we read the other day? No, this is some new stuff. Maybe there's some other stuff we can read in here. So people are pulling info from other things that I haven't seen yet. I mean, these are cool bits of art, but I was hoping that what they were referencing was the fact that there may be terracotta warriors who are smaller in stature and make up actual units that we could fight with. I thought that would be pretty cool. But here we do get to see the Ming Sky Lanterns and Sky Junks. So there's two variants, the smaller and the larger variant. One looks to have guys, with guns, and the other one I think is going to be the more rocket shooting platform that may also have guns. Maybe they drop bombs as well. That would be pretty sick. But yeah, we saw those in the trailer, quite a bit of them. I mean, oh yeah, we can read about them right here. Let's do that real quick. So the Kongming Sky Lantern are used by Cathayan armies to observe enemies from on high, as well as direct troops in battle. Held aloft by a caged vermilion warbird. What? There's a bird inside of there? Okay, that just blew my mind. The creature's burning... So they have a phoenix trapped inside of there. The creature's burning wings giving the balloon great lift. A sky... That just blew my mind. The Sky Lantern holds... It seems like it would be easy... I guess they haven't discovered, like natural gas or anything yet that they can use to make fire. Okay, they put phoenix inside of cages, and that's how they raise their balloons. I'm blown away. A Sky Lantern holds an armored gondola beneath its bulk. From this gondola, one of the Lord Magistrate's best strategists uses fans and banners to signal troops, or direct the fire of the army's war machines. Should enemy flyers or missile troops get too close, a pair of crane gunners snipe from their exceptional vantage point. So that maybe they have some sort of buffs that they apply. That would be interesting. Give them a little more utility, because I don't see these things being incredibly impactful, fighting-wise. I think if I stick a group of Fellbats on that, they're going to get wrecked. But maybe, yeah, they fly above, they give bonuses, and then they give you a little bit of aerial range coverage as well. Very, very interesting. And then the Sky Junk, an invention of Shi Hong, Nangao's master war artificer. The Kongming Sky Junk is a wonder of the Celestial Army. As large as a ship of the Jade Fleet, it is suspended in the air by a series of sky lanterns. Its armored cradle, able to turn aside arrows and bullets, as its crew rain death down upon the enemies of the Empire. These great vessels can be seen defending the borders of Grand Cathay, but are also used beyond the Great Bastion, where armadas of the Emperor's skyships have laid waste to entire marauder tribes. Very interesting. May even hint to, having marauders fighting like Norska or something is not that interesting. But the more enemy variants that they have, the better. Maybe that's what that's alluding to. Maybe not. And we see here the scale of a human to one of the Terracotta Sentinels. Very cool. See a little model for her and her dragon. All right, I'm good with that. Let's go back here and just check out Reddit real quick and see if there's anything interesting. Oh Lord, I don't know how to pronounce this. Okoi. I watch all of this dude's videos. They're all hilarious. Definitely go watch that if you're interested. 3-way battles would be sick. I'm in agreement. The number of times that I've had like the AI reinforce me in a battle, I think I've had it one time, and I was so stoked. I was playing as the dwarves. I had a 3-army. Was it 3 or 2? I think I had 2 dwarven armies. I had like Belagar and Ungram with crazy like iron breakers, long beards, organ guns, cannons, just a huge like holdout style army against the entire like chaos invasion. As many armies as they could field, I think 3. And then I was reinforced by Bretonnians, like a half stack with some cav. It was King Lewin Leoncoeur. I was like, oh hell yeah, he's got some Grail Knights, he's got some Knights of the Realm, he's got a couple trebuchets. And then the battle starts, and he literally just sits in the corner and doesn't do anything, and left me to like fight massive stacks. It ended up being one of the coolest battles I've ever done in Total War ever. And I still remember it. I wish I had a replay of it because it was so sick. Just layer upon layer upon layer of just blasting charges and just firepower and just Chosen and Shaggoths and everything else just getting torn to pieces. And as I killed one army, the next army would spawn and come in and start running towards me. It was just, and then I ran out of ammunition. I had probably like, I don't know, 12 Quarrelers or something. They ran out of ammo. I had to fight in melee as a last stand. Belagar and his ancestors were one of the last. It was so sick. It was one of the sickest battles ever. But unfortunately, the Bretonnians didn't do anything, and it kind of ruined the immersion when they were just sitting there not helping. So let's read other people's takes on this, and you know, the Monkey King being pretty much confirmed for perhaps a later DLC. I think that's fair to say. I mean, it could. I said it could be possible that he's also in the game at launch, but not playable. I don't think that's likely, but it's possible. So people are actually talking about the history of the Monkey King. That's pretty interesting. I might read that later. See what else is going on. Ogre invasions from the Mountain of Morn. Come on, CA, just give us the confirmation. I agree. They're pretty much all but confirmed. Very curious to see how the Chaos Dwarfs will be deployed. Which lands? Because if they're not in the game at launch, which I'm not expecting them to be, there's just gonna be this huge open, you know, area where they're supposed to be. Where I don't know what you fill it with. Greenskins, Skaven, Beast. I mean, just all the other kind of putrid races until they can show up and, you know, take their rightful place. I'm curious how they're going to do that. It's almost like they need all the races in right at the beginning. Dogs of War. Nah, that ain't happening, homie. Not for a long time, if ever. Alright, guys. That's going to be it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Just some ranting and nerd talk. If you're out there working or doing something you don't want to do, hopefully a little bit of nerd talk will get you through your day. It does for me pretty often. Yeah, but that's it for me. Brett, Goodtalk Gaming, all that good stuff. Like, subscribe. It helps me out. And as always, y'all, I'll keep you up to date on the news, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.